When my younger sister returned from Europe after decades abroad, she filled my quiet home with laughter, expensive perfume, and gifts I never imagined owning. She placed a luxurious designer handbag, a rare vintage perfume, and a dazzling Swiss watch on my kitchen table. I was stunned. At 68, widowed and living a simple life in Savannah, Georgia, I spent my days visiting the library, tending my garden, and stretching every dollar. Those elegant gifts felt completely out of place in my world. My sister smiled and told me that I deserved beautiful things no matter where I went. I believed they were simply thoughtful presents. I had no idea they would expose the painful truth about my own son. 2 days later, my son Ethan and his wife Claire came over for dinner. They arrived in their usual polished style, carrying themselves as though they were inspecting property rather than visiting family. During dinner, they spoke endlessly about careers, expensive lifestyles, and social events while I quietly served the meal. My sister watched everything without saying much. The evening seemed ordinary until Claire noticed the designer handbag sitting on a nearby table. Her eyes widened with excitement, and she immediately recognized how valuable it was. Soon, both she and Ethan were admiring every gift, estimating their prices, and talking about how exclusive they were. Instead of being happy for me, they laughed at the idea of someone like me owning such luxury. Ethan insisted I had no use for expensive accessories because I only went to church, the grocery store, and the library. Claire openly claimed the handbag belonged in glamorous social circles. Not inside my old house. Before I could fully react, Ethan began packing the gifts into the handbag. He calmly explained that he and Claire would keep everything in their climate-controlled safe because they would know how to care for them. He even suggested Claire could use the handbag at charity events, while he wore the expensive watch to business meetings. They spoke as though the gifts already belonged to them. I felt invisible. My own son treated me like an elderly woman who could not make decisions for herself. My sister firmly reminded him that every gift had been given to me and only to me, but Ethan dismissed her concerns. He expected me to stay quiet like I always had. For years, I had sacrificed my own happiness to avoid conflict, paid his bills when he struggled, and accepted being pushed aside. This time, something inside me changed. I looked directly at my son and told him to put everything back where it belonged. When he refused and continued arguing, I found a strength I had forgotten I possessed. I told both him and Claire to leave my home immediately. They accused me of being selfish and unreasonable, but I stood my ground. Furious, they stormed out, slamming the front door behind them. As silence filled the house, I realized I had not lost my son that evening. I'd finally stopped pretending he was still the caring little boy I remembered. The man standing in my living room had only seen me as a future inheritance. The next morning, my sister drove me to my attorney. I rewrote my entire estate plan. I removed Ethan as the executor of my estate and changed my will completely. Instead of leaving everything to him, I arranged for my home to be sold after my death and the proceeds to create scholarships for women rebuilding their lives. Ethan would receive nothing more than a family Bible. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Then my sister surprised me once again. She had already booked 2 first-class tickets to Paris. That evening, we locked my house, changed the locks, and left for Europe. I carried the beautiful handbag through Paris, wore the elegant watch every day, and finally lived for myself instead of everyone else. For months, I explored museums, cafes, and beautiful cities without worrying about anyone else's expectations. I discovered the woman I had forgotten long ago. During my travels, Ethan sent several emails. At first, he demanded answers and complained that Claire was angry. Later, his messages became softer. His career was falling apart, his marriage was failing, and he admitted he had been wrong. I replied only once, letting him know I was safe and happy, but I signed my name instead of calling myself Mom. That simple choice reminded both of us that I was more than someone else's mother. 6 months later, I returned home. Ethan looked older, exhausted, and broken. Claire had left him, and his confidence had disappeared. Sitting together on my porch, he apologized with tears in his eyes and admitted he had allowed greed and pride to destroy our relationship. I forgave him enough to begin rebuilding, but I made one thing clear. The woman who had spent years making herself small was gone forever. If he wanted a place in my life, it would be on my terms, not his. As he drove away, I picked up the designer handbag that had started everything. It was never really about luxury. It was about respect, dignity, and remembering my own worth. At 69 years old, I finally understood that life does not end when people stop valuing you. Sometimes that is exactly when your real life begins.